Good morning. Good morning, everybody. My name again is Samuel Eyitayo. I'm so excited to welcome you to the second session on this particular module on human resources management, which we've had our distinguished facilitator, Veronica Ghana. She started on Monday and we're ending on September 8th. I would like you all to please welcome her by putting our hands together. And then, having done that, I will also would like all our directors to please send in your list of those who have participated in past modules, because by this weekend, they should all begin to receive their certificates. Those who have gotten 80% participation. Without much ado, I will invite Veronica to please take on from here. Veronica, over to you.
All right, thank you very much. Class, I hope you enjoyed the last session we had together. And a couple of you have actually reached out to me to ask questions, and I hope we'll be able to have time to address those questions today. So, can anybody share with us one point from what he or she learned from the Monday session? Anybody? Okay.
You can all unmute yourself. Any of you can unmute, so you can unmute yourself.
All right. Okay, anyone from Oshobo to share with us? No one? All right, Victor Oyegoke. Can you share with us what you learned from the Monday session?
Victor, are you there?
Okay, if we don't have Victor, can we have Abimi Folua Omishore?
Can you just, by show of hand, anybody who would like to share with us what you learned on Monday? Anybody, please, our directors, please, in case there's anybody, just raise your hand. Okay, somebody from
Oshogbo window. Go ahead.
All right. Unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. Onima. My name is Ojoju Adinera. This module has enabled me to know how to equip me with how to interview, select right person, right talent, right skill into the right position, so that the organization opportunity to oversee will not have problem in the future.
All right. Thank you very much for that feedback. We have someone from Oka window. Go ahead.
Okay, so I learned that there are different organizational structure, and each organizational structure has a way of operating which is synonymous with our structure. That the way matrix or project structure operates is not the same as the way functional organization structure operates. neither is it the same way virtual. Those times we were using during COVID-19 is not the same way because everybody had to adapt. Then you said something about cutting back expectations. If, okay, plan A is not working, what about plan B? What about plan C? Okay, since school was not in session during that period, for organizations, NGOs that most their goals is reaching out to children that are out of school. So since they can't reach, let's say 100 students, okay, can they at least reach 40 or 50 or even 30? So that at least let there not be as if they didn't perform any goals, any of their goals at all. That was just them operating according to the times, according to what is happening around them, which lends, even churches then were also on lockdown. Events were not being held and all that. So everybody had to adapt. All right, thanks.
All right, thank you very much, Oka Window. That was very insightful. Okay, we have Abeokuta. Once we have Abeokuta, we will proceed with the activity for the day. Okay, Abeokuta, you have the floor now.
Okay, what I was able to gather and learn from a lecture on Monday is that you have to really define your vision and mission for the NGO, because this will keep you on the right path. And staffing as well, it's very important that you don't like people that work with you part-time. It's really not the best. You need some people that will be committed to helping you achieve the goals and dream of the NGO. That's what I'm able to gather from the last report, the session we had.
Thank you, Abeokuta Window. Yeah, all that you have said is true and much more, but we wouldn't have so much time to dwell on all we want to do. All right, so back to the business of the day. So we'll be talking about how you conduct interview and the kind of
Oka would like Oka's hand is up. Veronica.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed that.
That's the last person. Yes, Oka, please.
Okay, Oka Window, you have the floor.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
What stood out for me was the operations management. You know, that it involves the day-to-day running of organizations, and the fact that you have to look out for skilled people that will contribute to your original dreams and objectives. So I thought about it that way, but after our Monday session, I got to have a different idea of what it really meant, and I'm going to take that one home. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oka Window, for your contribution. All right. Let's go on to the business of the day. So we will be talking about interview and the kind of tools that you would require for you to be able to conduct a successful recruitment. So for today, the purpose is to examine basic elements in administering HR function in your organization. And then we define position through job descriptions that enables organization to effectively carry out their practice. And part of the objectives for today's session will be how we can craft good job descriptions. And then we'll also talk about how we can develop effective pay, that we usually call it in HR, compensation and benefits, and also the interview process, and then how you have an effective recruitment strategy. So interview, when you hear of interview, what comes to mind? What comes to your mind? Anybody? Okay.
Interview.
Yeah.
It usually suggests looking through somebody that wants a job document and interacting with them and making your decisions whether to hire or not to hire.
Okay, so from IK Peter, his opinion is how you have an engagement with a prospective applicant and take a decision based on the engagement, whether to hire or not to hire the prospective applicant. That's a nice one. Then we have someone from Oshogbo Window. Okay.
It's one of the scientific tools of investigation, interviewing.
Okay. All right. I think we are dealing with a professor here, right? All
Yes.
right. He said it's a scientific tool for investigation. Yes, it is. But in this context, we are streamlining it to attracting talent to your organization. Okay. Then we have Adebite Toba Lashe. Sorry if I didn't get the name correctly. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. You got the name correctly. Well, interview for me is a process of determining the best man for a job. It's the process you go through in determining out of the several applicants you might have, the person who will best fit into that opening.
Okay, very correct. Okay, one last person from American Spaces, Nigeria. You have the floor.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, interview can be reversed as a way of testing the intelligent competence of prospective employee in an organization based on the argument of that organization structure.
Okay, that's a good one. One last one from Oshogbo Window. Anybody? Okay, so we can proceed, please. Thank you. All right, from all you have shared, you are right, okay? And then depending on your organization, you will need to look at what will work best for you, okay? From all we have shared, from all the contributions, interview is the process where you attract, identify, select, and engage a prospective applicant to fill a role in your organization. First, you must have a need in your organization, and then you think of how do we get information out to the applicants that you are hiring. And then when the information goes out, you need to have a process of how you want to engage the prospect. In time past, you will invite prospects to a physical location, but with the advent of COVID and technology, all this has changed. Interviews can happen over a phone call. Interviews can happen in person. That has been in the practice from time past. And then a lot of technological tools have been developed that has helped organizations and recruitment agencies to be able to carry out interview without even having a physical engagement with the prospect. So we have structured interviewing. Sorry, we are talking about interviewing styles now. Your goal for every interview that you conduct is to get the best out of the pool of prospective applicants. And depending on the size of your organization or the quality of employees you are looking to hire, and also available resources for you, it will determine the kind of interview style you're going to adopt. For some organizations, when you are interviewing, you invite prospective applicants to your interview center or your office. With the budget available for you to recruit, some organizations provide stipends for applicants to come for interview in their organization. Most organizations do not do this practice. It's still okay, but it is a good business practice if prospective employees are able to make the journey of joining their organization seamless for prospective applicants. So for structured interview style, it involves interview with a pre-planned agenda. Definitely before you recruit, you already have your agenda in mind. What do you want to get out of it? For example, as a new organization, you want a HR manager for your organization, or you want the head of administration for your organization. Before you invite the prospective applicant, you already know the kind of work you expect the prospect to carry out. So if the prospect is unable to fill this role, then it means that your interview process is flawed. But if you take your time and plan your recruitment process, then you shouldn't have a challenge with this. Okay, in the structured interview style, the interviewer knows ahead of time what he or she is going to ask an applicant and then stick to it. Okay. For this kind of interview style, the person conducting the interview already knows what he or she wants. So if you're hiring for a HR manager, for example, during the interview, you won't be asking the applicant questions that borders around programming, for example, in NGO setting. So you will be focused on asking the applicant what his educational background in relation to the kind of job you expect him to conduct if you hire him eventually. You're going to ask questions around his people management skills, because a HR manager will be responsible for employees. So if the person you want to hire doesn't have the skill set for managing employees, then your interview is flawed and your recruitment process is even flawed. Okay? Then another interview style is the unstructured interview. In this case, the interviewer doesn't have a prior agenda. Okay, most times recruiters call it a chat so that you won't be too, it's not too formal. It will be more in a relaxed setting, and it's targeted at having more of intelligence rather than paper qualification. What the interviewer is looking out for in this kind of arrangement is to know your IQ level and your skill set rather than what your paper or your qualification have to say about you. Then another interview style is the panel interview. For many of us, if we have attended, let's say, conferences before now, we have seen how they have this panel session where you have experts from different fields come and address a particular issue. The reason why you have panel session is to have different experts share their views on a particular topic of concern or topic of interest, so to say. And then in the work environment, if you want to employ panel interview, this is more targeted at high-level roles like executive directors, country directors, director generals, because of the kind of responsibility involved in that particular role. So for organizations, when you interview an employee and engage an employee, you have strategies you put in place to keep the employee engaged, to keep the employee motivated on the job, okay? So during your interview process, some organizations give information on the kinds of benefits that should accrue to the role the applicant is going to occupy, okay? For some, they are open, for some, they are not, okay? And then for some organizations, the interview takes stages, okay? For example, if your office wants to recruit 10 employees on the same cadre, they will be performing the same role. For example, your organization has operations in 10 different states, and you want a state lead for each of these states. Definitely, you are going to invite a minimum of 30 people to interview for this role. And then you're going to streamline out of the 30 and select the 10 best that fits each of the roles for the states. So having a one-off interview is not ideal in a situation like this because you are having a large pool of applicants. So for you to get the best out of this, you're going to go for a second level interview. This second level interview would be more focused on the capacity of the applicants to carry out the job. The first level will be more about educational qualification, availability to carry out the job. But when you're going for the second level interview, you're going to be more definite about what the applicant said he or she can do with you are going to be matching what they said they can do with what your organization needs. And that is where you will start discussing issues around how much you're going to pay such an applicant, okay? Now, when you have such, you will need to be able to talk about the reward that comes with carrying out the function. That way, it will serve as a motivator. Is this the kind of office I want to work or not? I'm sure all of us seated here, when we are given the opportunity to work with agencies like FIRS for a start, and then let's say Ministry of Education, you know, because of the reward system that FIRS has, Ministry of Education may not have it. So our interest will be tilted towards FIRS more than Ministry of Education. It is only very few applicants who are passionate about education that will not really bother about the incentives or the rewards that come with some office function, that would willingly go for Ministry of Education if given the opportunity. I'm not saying Ministry of Education is not a good one, but if we look at the reality of the day, the compensation that comes with working in institutions like FIRS compared with ministries, they are different, and these are the kind of rewards as individuals or as a group that attracts talents to apply to such organizations. Now, as a business owner or as the executive director of your NGO, you have to design a reward system that will attract people to want to work with you, and not just attract people to want to work with you. You attract quality people, and aside attracting quality people, you have to also attract people who want to stay with you to build your organization. So your compensation and benefits package goes a long way in determining the quality of talents you are going to attract to your organization. If your organization is known to not pay well, you don't pay salary on time, you hold employee salary for months, compare it with another organization that by 25th of every month, salaries are paid. Employees are paid bonuses, like bonuses for calls, bonus for transport, bonus for health insurance, and all of that. Compare these two scenarios. You know definitely that the one that has better benefits will attract better talent than the one with poor compensation package, sorry. Okay, so for every business in Nigeria, you are bound by employment law in Nigeria. And the employment law states that when you recruit an employee, the employee is entitled to be paid salary. The employee is entitled to be given an offer letter. The employee is entitled to be informed the kind of job he or she is going to perform, okay? These are bound by law. There are some that are not bound by law. That means they are good employment practice, but they are not mandated to be given to the employee. Every now and then we are hearing of strike actions, picketing here and there. If you look inward and investigate, you find out that most of these centers around the compensation and benefits that is due to employees. If we hear of NLC going on strike, we hear of ASU going on strike, all this has to come with or boils down to compensation and benefit. What is due the employee and what the employer is actually giving the employees. If this is not properly managed, it leads to industrial actions, which are the strikes we keep hearing of every now and then. And trust me, no organization will thrive well when you have a bunch of employees that are not well compensated, that are not motivated to carry out their job, or even have poor or very low morale towards their work. Okay? So basically, the mandated benefits by law should cover for social security, leave, insurance. Employees are entitled to be paid their salaries and all that. But because of non-compliance, or because our regulatory agencies in Nigeria are not strict in carrying out these functions, we find out that a lot of employers default in this. It's not a good business practice, okay? Even if where you're coming from, that is what it is, try and be different. Try and improve on what you are used to. That way you will have employees that are loyal to you. They want to give you their best, okay? So some of the benefits we have, like medical benefits, okay? I mentioned that it is a good business practice, but most people prefer to have it monetized. That means they set aside a certain portion of your salary and give it to you as part of your salary to cover for your medical bills, okay? Some have taken it a step ahead to engage third-party insurance companies to provide HMO, just like NHIS, okay? We have a lot of organizations who provide this as a service, and your organization can reach out to to some of these organizations to provide this HMO, okay? Like what I do falls under this category. So for organizations who have provided this service, I'm giving you feedback as an inside person. If you pay the health insurance of your staff, it gives you an edge, makes your employees more loyal to you. And if given the opportunity to leave you for another organization, they look at some of these benefits and will reconsider leaving your organization. Okay, then we have what we call traditional and non-traditional benefits. Other organizations provide services like life insurance, group life assurance, paternal and maternal, how do they call it now? Maternity leave. And recently we have what we call paternity leave. When your wife gives birth, as a man, you are given some time off to spend with your family. So depending on your capacity and depending on your business practice, you can adopt some of these business practices. This will help you to have employees that are dedicated and also willing to go the extra mile to serve your organization, okay? Now, if you notice organizations that people leave frequently, people don't stay. If you look inward, it has to do with the kind of business practice. It's either they are not providing incentives for their employees, they don't pay salaries on time, they owe their employees, or they don't even give their employees opportunity for self-development or encourage employees to do self-improvement practices like going for training to be better than who they are, okay? For organizations, we call it employee engagement. Employee engagement involves all those activities you do to keep your employees motivated on the job. So for today, we have come to the end of this session. So I will leave the floor open for questions so that we will have ample time to be able to address questions which we didn't have to address from either the last session or today's session. Thank you.
All right, thank you very, very much. So the floor is open for questions. For those of us who are here last week, on Monday, please just put your hand up and then we will recognize you. Everyone can now unmute yourself and go ahead with the question. Daniel?
Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, wherever they are. I greet everybody. Thank you very much, Ma, for a wonderful section. Sorry, I couldn't meet up at the center point because of too much traffic. As I'm talking to you, I'm still driving, and I can't meet up at the center point. My question, first of all, I had one question last week that I needed to get cleared up, and I have another one today. So probably I'll just put both of them on table so Madam can do.
It's fine. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you, Raki.
The question I have is, what about if the CEO of the company doesn't have much educational background and to operate based on the organizational structure of the company and has a professional HR? What do you advise the HR manager or personnel to do to this? Should the HR manager get involved in personal training development of the CEO? That is number one question. Or how can the HR manager penetrate into the CEO too? And sometimes it might be as if you want to teach your boss the work or whatever thing that is not done, and it might just be as if you're committing an offense doing that.
I get your question. Okay, your question is, if the CEO is not qualified to be the CEO in terms of capacity, how will you as the HR manager address it? Okay? And then how do you like engage your CEO to ensure he does the right thing? Am I correct?
Yes, that's number one. And what is the second question is, what is the functional structure of an HR company when it comes to, are we to imply this same organizational structure into a HR company, or it has a different level of structure? Thank you very much.
Okay, your third question is, how do you structure your HR unit for your organization? Am I correct? I'm just paraphrasing.
How do
Daniel, you are muted. Okay, please, so we can save time.
I said, how can a HR company be organized? What's the organizational structure for an HR company, not a company on its own, a HR company? You know, we have HR companies also that are operating in the same level of organizations. So how can
is it the HR within the organization or an independent consulting firm for HR?
Yes, an independent
consulting firm. Okay, I will address that. Okay, first, there is no hard and fast rule for how someone becomes a CEO. Okay, people become CEO either by design, by nature, or by inheritance. So depending on the situation you find yourself, most of CEOs today started off as small business owners. And because of their business acumen, they've been able to build and grow their businesses to an enviable height. So at that point, there is a little you can do when it comes to the CEO not being able to function efficiently. Most one-man businesses in Nigeria today, in our HR cycle, this conversation keeps coming up every day on how business owners or CEOs do not allow HR to function. So what I will advise is the business owner has invested so much in the business to get to where he or she is today. So it's definitely going to be on the defensive when it comes to the issue of change. You cannot force change on your CEO, but the best way to approach this situation is give him the cost-benefit analysis of why he or she needs to adopt or make some adjustment in their operations. First, you have to buy their trust and then build a case around the current practice, what it costs, and your proposed practice, what it costs. If you present this in a logical manner to any person, no matter how hardened the person, when it sees that, when he or she sees that it is going to be more beneficial to him and will save him cost and bring him more money to the business, the person will definitely adopt it. Okay? Then when it comes to the issue of engaging the CEO, the only way you can get the best out of such a conversation is to give them reason to do it. And that is to show that it will bring more profit for the business. If it is something that will cost the CEO to spend more money, I will tell you that he is going to resist. And then you have to also present a case on how such bad or poor practices will eventually affect the business. And if possible, you can cite instances where maybe organizations lost out completely. If it were in structured countries, there is what government do, they take over your business if you don't do good business practice. That is not common in Nigeria, but it doesn't mean that in time to come, it will not happen, okay? Then self-development. There are inexpensive ways you can carry out self-development within the organization. It is when you are able to make the CEO see that this will not cost more, that is when they will adopt. And then when they begin to adopt and see the difference and see that this has led to improved performance, has led to employee retention, has led to higher motivation on the job, then you can suggest more expensive ways of getting things done. Okay? Then for your last question around HR organizations that are independent, we call them consulting firms, okay? For some organizations, if you have the capacity, you can outsource. For example, in banks, if you look at their security architecture, most of them are not being run by the banks. They have outsourced security to other organization consultants who have better expertise in managing security, okay? That is to give them room to focus on more strategic roles that would bring about them growing and then facing their core banking functions. Same with HR. Most organizations, they outsource their recruitment process. They look for consulting firms like the one you're talking about to get them staff so that they don't waste so much time running around to find talent, which would take so much of their time and energy instead of focusing on their business, their core business operations, okay? I think I've addressed all your questions. Daniel. All right, so we go to Oshogbo window.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ma.
Okay.
And please, I would like to connect to the Lekki American space, please.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, where are you calling? Where are you from?
Ibeju Lekki.
Okay, now you know Lekki Phase 1?
Yes, I know.
Now just go through, enter Lekki Phase 1 by Dowen College. The extreme end of that street is where Lekki Center is.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So can I go ahead?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Abeokuta window, can you ask your question? Abeokuta window. Okay, nobody? Port Harcourt. Please ask your question.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Thank you for this privilege.
You're welcome. Your question, please. No question?
Go ahead.
I have a question, Ma.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yes, my question is about retaining young people. Okay, so there's been this challenge now with recruiting young people. You get them on board. You seem to have aced all your checks as regards recruiting them, and then they come back 2 months later telling you other stories. How do we manage this situation, retaining the young people, even when you have put your best at recruiting and then you made good offer as regards the salary and retention policy? How do we handle this rising phenomenon? Thank you, Ma.
Thank you for your question. We call them the millennials and the Generation Z. It's common for young people of their age. There's nothing wrong with what you do, but an average 18 to 25-year-old or an 18 to 30-year-old is very unstable. They are looking for the next big opportunity rather than building on their skills. In coming into an organization, it's not all about the salary. What other skill set am I going to get by working with this organization? Most of Generation Z, they don't have that patience. You can recruit them today, in 3 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, they come back, they'll tell you that they've gotten another offer. Some of them wouldn't even have an offer. They just want to go home and stay because they have a daddy or mommy back home that is going to provide all the bills for them. So it's natural and it's common for their age grade. So what I will advise is, hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, my system is down, so I'm on the mobile now. What I would advise in such a situation is, upon recruitment, there's what we call onboarding process. Onboarding process is that stage before an employee finally resumes his role in the organization. You give the employee an orientation, and during the orientation stage, you're going to infuse into the employee the mission and vision of the organization and what he or she stands to gain. Then if you have a very good HR person, that period is the period that you will capture the mind of the employee. It is that point that is the defining moment, whether the employee wants to stay just for a short time or an employee wants to stay for a long time. We have organizations that people come into the organization 10, 20, 50 years of their life, they still remain in the organization. Whereas no matter how robust your package is, there are some that will never stay. You don't have control over that, but what you can do is to improve on your onboarding process and give people the reason to want to work with you. Okay? So for that, you will need to work on your onboarding process and also give employees the reason why they should stay, but always make the options open that if this employee is leaving, I should have a replacement. That is what we call succession planning. So you should always have it at the back of your mind. In the absence of this person, who will conveniently switch into that person's role without impacting on my business? Okay? Thank you. Next person. Good morning.
Go ahead.
Okay. Port Harcourt.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for the lecture on HR. Some of us are actually practicing it, and that's why I want to ask my question. First question is this. You talked about sex, you talked about ethnicity, race, and when the first step for a HRO person is calling for a CV, and the first section of a CV is about the biodata of the applicant. And in that biodata of that applicant, he has the sex, he has ethnicity, religion, all those kind of things. Are they actually necessary in terms of a curriculum vitae? That's the first question. And the second, you talked about types of interview, and you talked about the structure, you talked about the unstructured, and you talked about the panel. And in terms of actual practice, when you talk about the structured and the unstructured, in the structured, it's more of a written examination when you have the structured. And in terms of the unstructured, it is oral interview because, for instance, if a HRO person goes into an interview session and wants to ask the applicant questions, the responses of that applicant can take the person out of the structured questions. So when it comes to, oral, I think it is the unstructured interview that works. And when it comes to the written, it is the structured. And when it comes, the third leg of it is the panel. And I want to think that that panel interview should not be a third kind of interview, because the panel interview will work in the unstructured. Most interviewers or a HR team do not interview people, just by one person. You have a cross-section of persons interviewing the person. So I want to think that that third one should not be a standalone. It can even work in the structured and the unstructured. That's my own thinking. And I want to ask again, is there any kind of blind interview, like when you talked about types of interview, can there be anything like a blind interview, right? Those are my questions. Thank you.
All right, you asked, your last question is if there is what you call a blind interview. I didn't get that. Okay, blind interview. What do you mean by blind interview? I think most interviews is organizations like, for example, you want to join SSS today, and you want to join the bank today, and you want to join, sorry, teachers, I have to mention education institution again, for example. You definitely know that the interview structure for SSS and the interview structure for banks and the one for education sector will not be the same. For SSS, because of the peculiarity of the role you're going to cover, you will be interviewed. You won't even know you are being interviewed. Why? Because of the peculiarity around that kind of job. First, a lot of background check will happen on you without your knowledge before you are even invited to come for an interview. I don't know if that's what you mean by the blind interview.
Yes, something like that, ma'am.
Good. Now, depending on the peculiarity of the role you're going to occupy, interview processes vary, okay? Now, coming to the panel interview. Panel interview can be structured, it can be unstructured, as you mentioned, okay? But one thing I would want you to know is that there is no point running a panel interview for an interview that a structured interview can take care of, so that you don't waste resources. That is why I mentioned in my presentation that for panel interview, it is usually reserved for high-level employment, high-level roles like CEOs and the likes, okay? It doesn't mean that you cannot apply it for lower cadre, but for context, I just wanted people to have an understanding that the best type of interview for a particular kind of scenario. That's why I use that analogy, please. Okay. Then you were talking about the structured interview being oral and all of that. It's still part of it. There's no hard and fast rule to this, but we have this definition so that it can guide what we do, so that you don't expend so much time and resources on something that a fewer resources can yield you a better result in a faster turnaround time. Okay, so can we have Rafiat Dabiri? Rafiat, you have the floor.
Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I already sent in my question, but I'll just repeat it. I wanted to ask, is there a way to hold employees accountable? It's a follow-up to the question that the other lady asked about employing millennials and Generation Z. Yes, it's a very big problem. We have this problem in the production industry too, where you have factory workers, you know, just upping and leaving. They don't give notice. They don't let you know when they are leaving, and you are stuck. Your job is, your production is on hold. So is there a way to hold employees accountable and employers as well that do not uphold the terms of the contract or the offer letter that was made? Is there any way to hold them accountable?
Okay, I think what you mean is to have a bond, employment bond, that we tie both the employer and an employee to a certain terms of contract, right?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, yes. I will not encourage that. What I would advise is you should improve on your recruitment process, your recruitment and your onboarding process. The experience you give an employee when he is joining the organization would determine his affinity or his loyalty to your brand. Okay? For factory workers like Millennium and Generation Z, young persons of this generation, it is very common, but also we will not heap the blame on them entirely. We recruiters and we employers also need to up our game in our employee relations and employee retention strategies, okay? Most employees feel that they are not being valued by the organization. That is why they want to leave. They also feel that they are being underpaid. So they are looking for opportunities where someone will pay them higher, okay? They also have a feeling that, and there's distrust between the employer and the employee. That is where the HR unit of the organization comes in. The HR, you are supposed to build a bridge and bridge the gap between the distrust that exists between employers and employees, okay? We know a lot of organizations have very poor employment relationships between the owners of the business and their employees. And that is where you see labor unions and all of that come into place. But wherever I have worked in times past, I used to tell them that if we in HR do what we are supposed to do, okay, there wouldn't be need for labor unions within our organization. Most employees join labor unions because they feel the labor unions listen to them more than the organization. So please, we need to work on our employment practices, okay? Our conditions of service needs to be improved. It's not all about the monetary terms all the time. The way we engage our employees, the manner we talk to them, the manner we engage them, they all matter. So we need to improve on that, okay? If you need more, you can reach out to me, then we can engage on a personal level. I do that on a consulting basis, so we can talk more on that. So we don't dwell so much on this, please. But I will give this to you on a platter of gold, that the way your employees join your organization will determine the way they leave the organization. Have a structure around the process that you use in attracting talent. I know your CEO can just wake up and say, fire this one, get me a replacement immediately. What you as a HR personnel should do is to engage your employee that there is a process to this. And this is the reason why anybody coming into our organization must follow this process. And if you want to leave this organization, there is a process. You should work on your exit process and your exit procedure, and also give your employees a letter of exit that would show them evidence that yes, they worked with you, and then you should have a note on their conduct while they were with you before leaving the organization. Most employees abscond because they feel when they come to tell you the HR they want to exit your organization, you will not allow them go. No, it shouldn't be. Let your employees, even if they don't trust the management of your organization, you as the HR person, they should be able to come and confide in you. Please, let us make it like seamless when our employees come to us if they are having challenges. That way you will buy the loyalty of the employees. Okay?
All
Thank
right,
you.
Veronica, I think we need to speed this up. If we could just take like two questions. We go to Abeokuta, then American Corner Calabar, then we'll come back to Ike and Omolara. Yes, very quickly, unmute yourself and ask your question. Straight to your question, please.
Okay, thank you, Veronica. I have two questions. The first question is the interview.
Okay.
We've tried structured and unstructured interview employing staffs. And the second one is, I want to know which is really the best. And the second one is, you mentioned the benefits. We have the benefit, the medicals and all that in place. But still yet, what we experience is a frequent theft in the organization, which is not good. So we feel that there's nothing how will I put it? No matter how good you are to this staff, they still steal. So
all
what
right,
can be done?
Okay, I appreciate your question. For theft in the organization, may I ask what kind of organization you run?
Yeah, we run like a meat shop, grill, we grill fish, chicken, and all that, a barbecue, and we have a meat shop. Yes, even on the farm, the animal farm, animal feed, maybe go buy something, you still find out that they still steal, and you try the best to fight them.
All right.
So what?
Okay. So for theft in your organization, I would advise that you speed up or step up your internal security control in your organization. Yes. So what some organizations do to curb this is they do not allow bag into some sections of the organization. Okay. And then for theft, there is always collaboration. What is your policy around theft in the organization. So when you are engaging an employee during orientation, every organization, theft is zero tolerance policy. So what it means is that once you're caught, there is no justification for that. You're going to set up a panel to determine if it happened or it didn't happen. Once there's confirmation that it happened, then there is no mercy. The person should leave, because if given the opportunity, the person will do worse. So it should be a policy that is zero tolerance. That means you will not give a second chance for the employee to be in your premises, okay? Thank you. Then around the structured or unstructured interview, which is the best? I think I need to speak more on this structured or unstructured interview. This structured interview means that it will take me 5 days to conduct an interview. And within these 5 days, day one is I will publish my job opening, okay? And then day two, I will sift through the interest, that means the CVs I have received. Day three, I will send invitation to those that I have selected. Day four, I am going to give a 24 hours notice before I invite people. Most times when we send invitation for people, we don't give them enough time to prepare, okay? We just send out invitation maybe by 4 p.m. today, and you expect the person to show up for interview by 8 a.m. the next morning or 9 a.m. It tells a lot about the kind of organization you are. So if you send invitation for interview, give at least 48 hours. It could be that the person is traveling or the person has another engagement, so that it will give the person ample time to prepare. So if you give that 48 hours window, what it means is that within that 48 hours, the prospect would be planning to either accept to come for the interview or not, okay? So within that 48 hours, you can do a follow-up call or text to say that I sent you invitation for this interview for this role. Did you receive it? Yes. Are you coming? Then the person will tell you yes or no. At that point, you will be able to strike out. If you send invitation to 10 people, 8 will tell you yes, they will come. But eventually it is only 5 or 6 that will show up for that role. Do you get? So please build a structure around it. That is what structured interview means. Then the unstructured means that you can just go to the street and say, oh, I'm looking for marketers. There's vacancy here, come. Do you get? You will find out that the one that you put structure around it would give you better quality of applicants than the one that is unstructured in your recruitment. Then during the interview, find a way to subtly fit in your work culture to whoever you are engaging. It could be like a normal conversation you are having, but you are already giving them a tip of what working with you looks like. That way you are going to whet their appetite, let them aspire and want to work with you. And then during your onboarding process, you're going to have a proper structure around your work ethics, and then give people time to decide if they want to be with you or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, one more thing. Can we have the recordings of this session?
Okay.
The answer is yes. Once you are registered, if you are fully registered for the course, you always get it. We have a platform WhatsApp group for all those who
I
have registered.
on Monday. I sent the form, but
all right. Then
once you are there,
next person.
Once we are there, you'll get it. Calabar,
Calabar, can you ask your question?
Yes, good afternoon. Am I heard, please?
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Veronica. I must commend your voice is very warm and receptive. Thank you very much. And I feel your heart in your presentation. My question is too, and I think they are interrelated. Speaking of employees' engagement, there are some companies that hold the perception that employees would abandon them and possibly go start up their own company after having many opportunities to improve themselves using their resources or the platform they as a company has created for them. So from your real experiences, what's your advice any day, anytime?
All right. To answer you, you cannot keep an employee that has made up his or her mind to leave.
Should they take the risk of it to look for more competent advantage for companies that have staff that has been with them from inception and companies that keep changing?
So what you should be looking out for is
companies benefit, yeah?
Okay, what you should be working towards is succession plan. That means as the exit of my admin manager, have I groomed a younger person to take over from the person? One thing we do, the mistake we make for organizations is that we don't plan for the future of our employees. So when they want to leave, we find it difficult to let them go. Please build the culture of your organization around nobody is indispensable and anything can happen. Like I mentioned, since COVID happened, we should all have it at the back of our mind that we should not allow that happen again. I'm not saying that pandemics will not happen, but what I'm saying that the devastating effect it had that businesses had to shut down for months should not happen again. What it means is that we need to develop strategies that will keep our businesses in operation in case eventualities happen. That is what organizations call succession planning. Please always have it at the back of your mind to design strategies that will keep you operational. Okay. Thank you, Calabar. I hope I've addressed your question.
Yeah, slightly. And I think I would like you to talk about training, training of your employees, that fear of having them thinking that they'll possibly leave after you've spent a lot investing in them. So does the succession plan cover for that?
Yes, succession plan covers for that, but there are trainings that, for example, now you invest in your employee and you send them abroad for training. It is expected that when they come back, they will transfer the knowledge they have gained from abroad to become of value to your organization. But we find out that most times when such employees travel, they come back and don't spend much time. That means there is no return on investment for that particular training. So what we advise organizations to do is, if you're going to send an employee on training, let it be on record, documented, signed by both you and the employee that the basis you're sending him or her on this training is to transfer knowledge to the business or to add value to the business. And you expect that it will take 1 year or 2 years after the training for you to actually get the best of your returns on your investment. So before the person goes on that training, let the person sign a training bond that after training, he or she is going to come back and spend a minimum of 1 year or 2 years before considering leaving the organization. That way, the organization has protected its interest. And if the employee wants to leave, you would stop the employee from leaving, but you know it's going to lead to legal action. So if the employee knows that this step I'm going to take is going to take legal action, you will leave your lawyers to decide, okay? So most incidences that have occurred, how they address it amicably is either the beneficiary of that training, okay, pays back a certain percentage of the cost of the training, or the person stays that duration after the training. That way, no bad blood between the employer and the employee. I hope this will help you.
Very well, Ma. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, then we have Ikeja. Ikeja, please, your question.
Thank you. I'm from Adicare Rehabilitation Home. My question, Ms. Veronica, thank you. You've been so wonderful. My question, can small organizations have human resources?
Come again?
For me, can smaller organizations like can we have an office, at least the upcoming ones, or a department for human resources, knowing that you are still very small? Because you are still growing and you are still trying to put yourself together. That is one. Then on the retainership of our staff, even before coming here now, my teaching staff just left me, but it didn't stop me from coming for this lecture. I just asked my daughter to take over. Despite the fact,
there's noise in your background, so I can't hear what you're saying. Sorry. And please be fast in asking your question.
On retaining our staff, how long, what else can we do? Because some of these young staff or lower cadre, like cook or cleaner that you use, that are not professionals, that you are using, some of them will just come up with one story, just one morning, they will leave you. What else can you do apart from trying to be good to them, giving them leverages, and trying to, do one thing or the other? Like this one that left me this morning, it took time out of his salary to travel for 4 days. Apart from the normal off, he came down with 3 days sick leave this month. Altogether, 11 days she has not come to work. And I deducted it from her salary. She called me this morning, she won't come. So what do you do?
Okay, all right. For small business, small, okay? All businesses started small. The GT Bank, MTN and the likes that we all have today, they all started from somewhere. But for the little one we have, okay, always have proper policies, procedures in place, such that when you employ a new staff, okay, set a day aside, maybe every Fridays, and have orientation on your policies and procedures, okay? For your policies and procedures, it will state the expectation of every employee in the organization. That way, it becomes like a culture. It becomes part of the employee, okay? Now, for example, this employee you used as an example, 11 days out of probably 25 days, that means over 50% of man hour is lost. No business owner will take it. So I'm going to throw it back to you. What is your policy around absenteeism or leave? What is your leave policy like? Do you allow employees to go on leave when they want to go? Hello, I can barely hear you. I think you are on mute. I can't hear what you're saying. I've lost your audio.
Somebody from American Corner. Is the director there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Okay,
please.
good. I can hear
Yes.
now.
Yes. They are allowed to go on leave when due.
Okay, how often do you allow the leave? Is it that they just come, or you know that every month as an employee, I am entitled to 1 day or 2 days as my annual leave, okay? Then if I want to travel, you will not come. I'm traveling on Friday, for instance, and then you come to meet me on Wednesday, Madam, I'm traveling on Friday. No, the policy should be that in September, if you are planning to travel by August, before 25th of August or before 20th of August, send me your leave request for approval, okay? So probably from January to August, the person has not traveled yet. Then what you would do is, your policy says the person is entitled to 1 day annual leave monthly. So the person has 8 days from, okay, let's say 7 days from January to August, since you have not expended August yet. So from January to July, the person is entitled to 7 days. So if you want to travel, plan ahead such that when it is time for you to travel, there will be no friction. That means you took proper authorization and you were given approval to travel. Okay, then you should have a form, a leave form to document this process, please, and put it in their file. There is a policy. Part of your leave policy should say that if the person exceeds the number of days he or she was authorized to go without approval, then there should be a penalty for it. Either the person goes on suspension or not. But the beating is, in HR practice, we call it early warning signal. Early warning signal shows that the person, by his or her action, is already working on something, but because it's something, it never enter in hand, okay? I won't go, I no one go, make I take leave. You understand? They will exhibit all these signs. But to mitigate against it is to have a proper leave policy in place and implement it. Thank you. So we have Omolara Ajetumobi, then Peter lastly. Then I will go to the chat. I'm sure some people have questions in the chat. Please be very snappy with your questions so that we can address as much as we can. Thank you. Omolara, over to you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Veronica. Okay, I work in a non-profit organization and I work with volunteers mostly because right now we don't have the resources to hire professionals.
Okay.
And I discovered that whenever I convert a volunteer to a permanent staff due to their performance or ability, or probably they said they need a job, after they sign the agreement, the employment letter, their performance level will drop and they start giving excuses, not completing tasks on time, giving excuses. It has happened twice and I had to search myself to ask myself, is it because they are now under salary? Probably I'm expecting too much from them. But other team members, other volunteers do notice that. So my question now is, am I doing something wrong? And how do I manage that? Thank you, ma'am.
All right, Omolara, you are not doing anything wrong, okay? It is normal. Employees begin to exhibit some signs when they are not being properly monitored or they are beginning to become tired. So you will check, do you give your employees time off? Please don't say time off is a waste of, no, it's not a waste, please. If as a business owner, you are seated here and you don't give your employees time to go off, the time they go off is to enable them to go and rejuvenate so that they will be more productive, okay? Find a way of incorporating this practice in your operations, please, okay? And then for employees' performance dropping, if you are making an employee a permanent offer, what it means is that the expectation for the job has changed. So before you give that employee that offer, make sure you have a one-on-one engagement with the employee and inform the person that this means or this offer comes with additional responsibility, and spell it out, what he or she is supposed to do, okay? Please, always document these things so that you can make reference during your review with the employee.
Hello, ma, I do all of that, and we actually work 3 days in a week, not every day. So they have enough time to themselves to do whatever they want to do.
Okay.
So we have a conversation, and they are okay. This is they have job description and okay and everything, but then they probably submit a document. And when it's time to submit the documents, they are stalling. They are not submitting on time. And
if they are not meeting deadlines, I think the best bet is you shorten the deadline. For example, your report is due on Friday, and you send out the request maybe on Monday. So you tell them deadline is Tuesday, or you tell them deadline is Wednesday. That way, they have pressure at the back of their mind telling them that, oh, I am due to, so that you too, you have a window to be able to receive the report, review it before sending it out to the parties you are supposed to send out to, okay?
Okay, ma'am, thank you.
All right.
Barry.
All right, hello everyone, good afternoon. Thank you so much for this session. So what I want to talk about is more in terms of the processes and structure that you were talking about, right? So I can hear what everyone is saying. So I also run a not-for-profit. I happen to manage 2. And so we have like 2 separate HR. So what I do, I'm just saying this in case this might help some people, is this, right? So we have like a recording where we talk about the processes of the organization, explaining the structured document, and then we send it to everyone. So there's a structured document that has the responsibilities and JD of every single department in the organization. And so therefore, when people even apply to volunteer with us, we send everybody this recording, like giving them an expo, so that if they are lazy to even do research about us, they've listened to the recording, they've read our structured document, and then we take it off from there. We also have our processes in such a way that people can now volunteer with us for 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months, and then they are entitled to a reference letter. You know, I picked up that from what you said. You also have to think about incentives for these volunteers. So a lot of times people want to leave the country, they want to be able to travel out, and so they're also looking for all of these things. But then my own question now, after sharing this, is that, you know, no matter how you do these processes, sometimes your best people leave. Because the thing about recruiting now is that, you know, it takes some time for people to adjust to the system, you know, and so you have to start, you have to wait sometimes, you know, not everybody can just, you know, when you join an organization, it still takes time for you to know how things work before you now, before people finally get it. So sometimes, you know, people now leave. So why I have to create this one? Because I've been very heartbroken, you know, when your best person says they are leaving the country or their next flight is tomorrow to Canada, you can't tell them to stop, especially when you can't afford to pay them the normal wages in the new country and all of those things. I'm just trying to ask, you know, what would you advise? Because no matter how we keep making these systems, you know, these things keep happening as well. So yeah, that's just my question. Like, any tips in terms of how to improve the system or structure?
All right. Thank you for your question. For me, I always tell business owners, okay, to prepare for the worst. That's why in my earlier conversation, I keep saying, do succession planning, okay? Succession planning doesn't have to be too robust or too perfect, okay? But always have it at the back of your mind that no one person is doing all the job, okay? For every role, create a system in place where if this person is not available, you have another person that can step in and function in that role. And what can help you to achieve this is to practice what we call job rotation. Job rotation, please, if you have not done it before, try and incorporate it in your practice. Job rotation means that if one person is doing admin this month, okay, next month you can pair him in payroll, so that if your payroll staff is sick or bereaved or even leaves the office, right? When it comes to paying of salary, you will not have a challenge because you already are training somebody to take up that responsibility. So job rotation is another way you can use to actually prepare for the exit of any of your employees. And then also have a system in place where you have information sharing, so that when there is, maybe your computer gets missing, do you have backup for all the data on your computer? No. So Gmail has a resource where you can back up your information in a cloud. Do you get, under Google Drive? That way, if an employee that is a custodian of your sensitive information is leaving, you have a backup of that information on Google Drive. Even though you may not be able to retrieve all 100%, but you should be able to have access to the email and also have access to the Google Drive. So please, you should adopt a strategy that works for you, but in the barest minimum, this is what I would advise every business owner to have, please. Always shift your employees across different departments so that they are knowledgeable about operations of different departments, not just where they are employed. Thank you. Then Mr. Peter, lastly, before we go to those in the chat.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate today's section. It's very, very impacting. My question is this. When we
Hello, I've lost you. I can't hear you. Come again.
Interview at times can be very intimidating,
Phone
especially
interview?
when panel interview.
Okay, panel interview. Okay.
Yes, it can be very, very intimidating, especially when the profile of the interviewers have been dished out as a way of introduction to the prospective employee. They seem to be intimidated by that profile. And how can we reduce such? Again, I only want to ask concerning recruitment at the faith-based organization like the churches. I happen to be a council member, and I see the process that they used to recruit pastors to some of the churches. It doesn't follow this procedure you just taught today. I don't know how we can do it better, because most times it's always that I have a calling. You know, the Lord said, the Lord has spoken to me, and that's the first way for adopting to recruit people. How can we really streamline this in such organizations? Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you for that question. Yes, I appreciate that you are able to bring out something that we didn't really dwell much on. That is the profile of the panel members in a panel interview setting. For panel interview, that is why I mentioned earlier that for panel interview, we should reserve it for top level role. Say, for example, now we are in the electioneering process in Nigeria right now, okay? The panel is all those interviews that we are calling the presidential aspirants, come and answer this question, come and answer this question. So for me, I advise that for panel interview, you as an applicant, you have gotten to the peak of your career. That means at that cadre where you have built over the years competence. So panel interview is more around competence. Do you get? That's why I said panel interview is not advice for most interview process, but should be taken or preserved or used in a situation where you want to hire a high level personnel. So for somebody who has maybe about 15, 20 years experience, I don't think you should have any panelists that you shouldn't be able to face, but people are different though. To like minimize the impact of maybe stage fright when you go for a panel interview, what I would advise is if you have this weakness that you get intimidated by profile of those you're going to, or stage fright, let me use stage fright, that's the right word to use. If you have stage fright, what you should do is before you go for such a panel, you should practice, stand in front of your mirror and imagine yourself before those panelists and begin to imagine yourself in that interview session and assume, imagine the kind of questions they will ask and how you're going to respond. I'm definitely going to be sure that nothing in the interview panel that is not known to you. They may phrase it in a way that is not new, but it should be something you have done before and what you will do differently. Basically, that is what panel interviews are all about. You have gone beyond, oh, what school did you go to? What is your qualification? No, it is more about your skills and your competence at that level, okay? Then for faith-based organizations, it's actually a challenge, but what organizations have done is to build a structure around it, okay? For you to be a founder of a faith-based organization, it doesn't confer on you the quality to be a people manager. A lot of pastors, a lot of religious leaders are actually very bad people leaders. They may be spirit-filled, but when it comes to managing people, they are very, very, very terrible with that. I must be frank with you. So what organizations have done now is a lot of faith-based organizations have been having series of power conference where they invite experts that are outside of the spiritual sphere so that they will infuse in them this other side of the operations, okay? They invite speakers. Ibukun Awosika is one very prominent person that a lot of churches have been inviting to come and address their people outside of that spiritual side. We will not take out in faith-based organization, in context churches, okay? You will not take out that spiritual aspect of I am being called, I am not being called or not, okay? But we can improve on the process. And that way is what churches are now doing, men's conference, women's conference, where they bring experts from different fields come and address them. A lot of churches have started adopting it. If you look at what is happening in churches in the last 5 years, compared to what it was in the last 10, 15 years, you will notice that there has been a lot of shift in that. So your organization too can adopt that. You may not have the resources to invite someone like Ibukun Awosika, but within your congregation, there are people who are doing well in their offices. They can volunteer and give you this training, these instructions, this during your conferences. I always used to tell pastors that If you're organizing conferences, let it not be all about the spiritual side. Please infuse the emotional, the mental, the marital, the financial aspects. That is what makes a wholesome Christian. But we focus more on the spiritual side and allow the other aspects to suffer. So we should learn to adopt all of this so that you will have a wholesome member or pastor or leader, church leaders. Everybody needs all this to thrive. Thank you.
Veronica, we have just 8 minutes to go, but let me quickly run through the chat. Nduka said, please, how can one startup organization or NGO navigate around the challenge of lack of finance as it affects recruitment of quality staff in a young organization? So that's one question. Next question is for Simon, which is close to that. How can we recruit and compensate volunteers? And then Bliss, that's a third one. Apart from the HR strategic plan, HR policy manual, what other HR documents should an organization have? Is the HR manual distinct from employee manual, or can they be one document? Is it okay to have just one HR manual that compasses policies and every HR procedure, including employee manual, or to have the document separately? What is the best practice? I think we can stop at that. And if there is more time, then we can read the other ones. If you can make it sharp.
All right, I have just several minutes. I hope I'll be able to address all this. Okay, for Ebuka's question on fundraising, I think you should focus more on positioning yourself for fundraising before thinking of fundraising. What do I mean by that? By your work, what impact is your work making? And how are you aligning the work you do to your prospective funders, okay? Now, before you go for grant requests from any organization, what you are doing must align with what the funders do. So for some, they are generous enough to tell you that, okay, you do not qualify, but you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this, do that, document, be properly registered, have about 3 years financial statement and all of that. So please have all these documents ready, then you can randomly reach out to organizations who you know are funders. And I want to give you this as an expo. There are a lot of organizations out there who have the money, are looking for projects they want to fund, but how ready are you if the opportunity presents itself? So you need to go back and ensure that all your documentations are in place so that when the opportunity presents itself, and then please leverage on the power of network, okay? Even within this organization, this setting that we have in the American space, this particular session that you are running, there are people who may not be able to provide you funding, but they have access to resources that will bring funding for your organization. So please leverage on that. Thank you. Then somebody said about compensation and benefits for volunteers. Please, there is no structured way around compensation and benefits for volunteers, but what you can do is, what is your budget? You cannot go beyond your budget. So if you want to engage any volunteer from the onset, look at your budget. How many people do you need to carry out this project for you? Let them know it, engage them and inform them so that they don't have so much expectation from you. Then another question for HR manual and employee manual. HR manual is different from employee manual, okay? What employee should have is code of conduct, okay? And then employee handbook. these are documents that you should give your employees. Then for HR manual, you have so much. There are over 30 to 40 different documents that will make up your HR manual. I dropped my email in the chat. So in case you have questions, the ones I can address, the ones that you will need consultants to address, I will let you know. So you can shoot me a mail there. Then I think these are the questions I was able to get. Is there anyone I missed that I didn't address?
You've covered all of them. Thank you very, very much. There's another one, issue of salary, self-employment letter, and fix your salary that you will not. Okay, I think we are done. There are other questions that we have to undo. A number of questions came as to where our locations are, the American spaces in the country. I've dropped a link right there on the chat box. You'll be able to see locations of American spaces all over the country. Why we are doing this is because many of you may not have the data. And then secondly, if you are at home and you are not physically within the location, one may not pay attention to the whole teaching process. So that's why we encourage people to come physically so that they can at least be here to learn. And for those who are in, if you're able to attend 80% of the time, then you are sure that you are going to hand a certificate of completion. There are some quizzes we've been throwing out, and this will all count for every one of us. I can see that issue of Kano, you'll see an email there on that same platform. Send an email to them. For the one requesting our Bauchi, send an email to the director there. Then they'll be able to answer your questions. We are located in various places, so I can't be answering for Kano or for Bauchi. They have respective email and they'll be able to answer your question. So with that, I want to thank Veronica. Let's see your face. At least people would like to see. Do you mind? We like your picture.
Sorry.
But
okay.
Some people, so that in case, okay, look at the person who has been talking with us all this while. Can we put our hands together, everybody, for her? Because of thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
We're very grateful.
You're welcome.
We continue on Monday, and hopefully you are all going to get set. I like the style she has been taking in an easy, straightforward way. And I'm telling you, she's actually dealing with standards. As she was talking, I was also reflecting on what operates within the US mission. Most of what she has said is those are the standards that we keep. Nobody will ever say if you have an opportunity, you cannot move. But if you attend any training that costs so much, of course, you have to sign a bond. That bond means you cannot go for a specific number of years. But if you want to go, all you need to do is just refund the whole cost of the training, and then you'll be allowed to go. So all that she has been teaching us are so vital. I want to say thank you once again, Veronica. So hope to see everybody next Monday. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye to you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Everybody say bye.
Bye.
Yeah, everybody.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.